All right, we're here. So I'm hoping that we are all good on the connection issues. I've had a couple, but I think we should be good sitting in here. But, anyways, we're live here. We are going to be doing another episode of the Elite Development Podcast. And we're going to be starting the show around the 2 minute mark. So if you are coming in before then, if you are on the replay, make sure to skip forward to about 2 minutes to get in right into the show. But if you're here live right now, drop me a comment. Let me know that you're here. Let me know that you're watching. We are going to be talking today about the 1% athlete lifestyle. So before we get into the show, we are here to reach athletes. We are here to reach athletes that are trying to reach the next level, trying to build better versions of themselves for their sport. So if you're here live right now, make sure to tag a friend, tag a teammate, tag a coach, tag a young athlete in your life in order to help make sure they get to these live streams. TJ, I appreciate you coming on the show, coming on and listening in this morning. And yeah, so tag somebody in the comments now to make sure that they are getting this message. We're talking about the 1% athlete lifestyle, talking about the lifestyle you need to reach the next level in your sport. We're going to get into the show in about 30 seconds here. But quick reminder, if you have not tuned into the podcast before, you can find it on all major platforms. That is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find your podcasts, you can find this show. It is called the Elite Development Podcast. So we talk all things athlete development. And today we are about to get into the show. We are talking about the 1% athlete lifestyle. So let's get into it now in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are talking about the 1% athlete lifestyle. Now, what do I mean when I say the 1% athlete lifestyle? So, if you're following me, if you are trying to reach new levels in your athletic career, if you have tuned into the podcast before, the chances are you are someone who is trying to make a career in a sport. You're someone who is trying to reach the highest level they can, trying to reach their potential, trying to do everything they can to live a dream, not have to live a life where you're working a shitty 9-to-5 job that you don't like, and living as an athlete, living the lifestyle of a professional athlete, and obviously all the glory, all the love, everything that comes with that. And if you are actually successful in doing that, you are one of that 1%, because of the millions of kids that grow up playing sports, competing, and dreaming of making a career in their sport. It is less than 1% that actually managed to do it. It is less than 1% that actually managed to make their entire living off of their sport. So we are talking today about the lifestyle of that 1% athlete. We are talking today about the lifestyle of the athlete that reaches that top level in sport. Stefano, I appreciate you coming onto the show. So let's get into that 1% lifestyle of an athlete. So many people think that when they are living that athlete lifestyle, many people think that that just means they need to train a lot. You know, if I'm training hard, that means I'm doing the right things. If I'm doing the right things, I'm going to make it as an athlete. You know, or one of the biggest things I see is that they make the mistake of comparing themselves to the other people in their gym. They make the mistake of comparing themselves to the other people in their gym. You know, I train harder than that guy, so clearly I'm doing the right things. Or I'm showing up more consistently than this guy or that girl, so clearly I'm doing the right things. But what you've got to remember is that if you're trying to actually make a career in your sport, if you're trying to actually reach the top level in your sport, training harder than some people at your gym are definitely not the comparisons you need to be making. Because if you are trying to reach the top level, being a harder worker than, you know, a couple of people at your gym or whoever else it is that you might be comparing yourself to is not the comparison you need to be making. The next thing is see people fall into the trap of I'm putting in a lot of hours. And if I'm putting in a lot of hours, that means I'm doing the right things. If I'm putting in a lot of hours and I'm doing the right things, that means I'm going to make it. And again, putting in a lot of hours is a very important thing. Putting in a lot of hours is going to be very important in making sure that you reach high levels in your sport. And I see a comment coming in saying, I personally believe a true athlete is the one who can live a life of balance. And I completely agree with that. And we're going to talk a little bit later in this episode about what exactly balance means when it comes to the life of an athlete. But what I was saying there, people fall into that trap of just the number of hours that they're putting in, thinking about the number of hours that they're putting in, going, I'm putting in more hours than this guy, I'm putting in more hours than that guy. Therefore, I'm going to be the one who makes it and they're not. However, there are a few things that are going to be important to remember when you think about those hours. There are going to be a few things that are going to be important to remember when you think about those comparisons that you tend to make when you're creating that career. And so today's episode is either to show you that you're on the right track or to wake you the fuck up and make you realize that what you're doing is not enough for what you're trying to achieve. So what does the 1% lifestyle actually mean when it comes to building a career in a sport? Now, we've gone over a couple of things that I commonly see with athletes, thinking that, I train every day, so that means that I'm doing the right things, or thinking that, I'm training harder than this guy or that guy, so that means I'm doing the right things, or falling into the trap of simply looking at the hours that they're putting in. So the one thing I want to get across to you right away, putting in a lot of hours does not separate you. Putting in a lot of hours is what every kid out there that wants a career in their sport is doing. Every single one. No one is showing up 1 or 2 times a week thinking that they've got a future in the sport. And if they are, they're just delusional, and that's not someone you need to be thinking about anyway. So putting in a lot of hours does not separate you. Being a hard worker does not separate you. These are both very important things to have, both very important things to be doing, but they're not enough to separate you and not enough to ensure that you are going to reach that 1% while others fall off. So how do we do it? So what the 1% really means is being willing to do what the others are not willing to do. And yes, putting in a lot of hours is going to separate you from some people, but is not going to be enough to put you over the top. So one of the things that I see a lot of athletes neglect that is going to be crucial to your long-term success is taking proper care of your sleep and your recovery. Because again, you can be the most highly skilled athlete out there. You can be the most highly skilled athlete on the planet. But if your body does not hold up to the demand that you put on it, you will not be successful long term. If your body cannot hold up to the demand that you put on it, you will not be successful long term. Plain and simple. Your body needs to be healthy. Your body needs to be strong. How do you make sure that happens? You take proper care of your sleep, proper care of your recovery. So all of these athletes out there that are thinking, I'm putting in more hours than everybody, I'm doing more work than everybody, so I'm separating myself from everyone. If you're sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night, barely able to get yourself out of bed, hardly able to move when you're getting into your training sessions every day, despite the fact that you might be working harder than everybody, you are not getting ahead the way you think you are. And I need you to understand that. You are not getting ahead the way you think you are, and you need to start being conscious of your sleep and your recovery. Now, another thing that I see many athletes neglect is nutrition. So one of the things we're going to add into that list of the 1% athlete lifestyle is properly meal prepping to fuel your body for the demands you have on it. Now, when I'm talking about this, I mean, there are so many athletes out there that, again, work so hard, train so hard all the time, but they eat like absolute shit. And as a result, even though they're putting in all this work, even though they're putting in all this effort, they're not getting ahead the way that they think they are. They're not improving at the rate that they could be because they're trying to fuel their bodies with shit food. So one of the other things on that list of creating the 1% athlete lifestyle is making sure that you're properly fueling your body. Now, the last big thing I want to talk about here when it comes to developing that 1% athlete lifestyle is proper training. Proper training to get results, not just the hours put in. So we've talked already in this episode about athletes falling into the trap of thinking putting in more hours puts them further ahead. Now, it comes down to how you're spending those hours. A lot of athletes get stuck in the ego of just, I need to be the hardest worker. I need to work harder than everybody else. So what they get, the trap they fall into is they're doing the wrong shit. Combat sports, this is a prime example. I see so many athletes out there thinking that if they run an hour and a half every day, if they run 2 hours a day, if they're doing all these crazy, ridiculous cardio workouts, that's going to put them further ahead, because if I've got cardio to go all day long, then nobody's going to be able to beat me. I understand the mentality, but think about it. If you're a professional MMA fighter, you have 3 5-minute rounds or 5 5-minute rounds. That's maximum 25 minutes. So if all your training is focused on these crazy long runs and thinking, how long can I go before I drop, and pushing yourself to the absolute limit, you know what you have by the time the fight comes around? You have a worn out athlete that can go very slow for a very long period of time. And what do you need when that fight comes around? You need a recovered, strong athlete that can go as hard as possible for 3 to 5 5-minute rounds. That requires different training. So again, being the guy who's stuck in that mentality of, I just need to work the hardest, versus being the guy who's trying to understand what they're doing, trying to understand the benefits behind it, and trying to create the most effective plan moving in towards their competition. You see the difference between those two? So now, one of the other things, actually, I know I said that was the last thing, but there's one more, is showing up for the shit you hate like you love it. Because going off of these first few points, I know there are going to be a lot of athletes out there saying, I'm doing all this already. You know, I've got to all my sessions every week. I'm not missing anything. And, you know, I'm just like, I'm working super hard and I'm meal prepping. I'm doing all these things. Great. But showing up to the shit you hate like you love it. Because again, it's one thing to show up to the sessions you actually want to be at. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I understand that if I turn to every single athlete I work with without fail and said, you have a choice, strength and conditioning or your sport, every single one is going to pick their sport. Nobody is going to pick coming to my gym over coming to the MMA gym, the boxing gym, whatever else it is for their sport. Because you're an athlete. You want to be doing your sport. So again, when it comes to showing up for the shit you hate like you love it, every single area of that preparation, that means mindset work, that means nutrition, that means strength and conditioning, that means your skills training, every single area of that preparation, you need to attack with the same intensity. You need to attack with the same passion. You need to attack and understand that when your strength coach has you lifting, you're lifting to get stronger for your sport. This isn't something you're doing to take away from your success. This is something you're doing to continue to further your success. And if your mentality is, when I'm spending time in the weight room, that's time I could be spending doing my skills, you're missing the point. If your mentality is that any of these other things, you know, I'm sleeping when I should be training, or I'm meal prepping and that's another session I could be doing, every area of that needs to be a top priority. It can't just be, I'm going to get all my skills training in and then see what else I can fit in. You're leaving holes in your game. And if you're trying to be that 1% athlete, if you're trying to actually make this your career, if you're trying to reach the top level, you can't be that guy that misses those little holes in the game, that leaves those little holes in the armor. Because if you do, you will fall off. Because again, if you're not doing these things, if you're not attacking these things with that same intensity, that same purpose, and that same passion as you do your skills training, you're not getting as much out of them as you could. And if you're not getting as much out of them as you could, you're missing the boat. You're missing the point. You're leaving holes in the armor. And if you're leaving holes in the armor, then you are not going to reach that 1%. Why are you not going to reach that 1%? Because it's 1 fucking percent. That means 1% of everybody that's out there right now is actually going to make it. So why is it going to be you? If you're missing those areas, if you're not doing enough, if you're leaving those holes in your game, why are you sitting here thinking that you're still going to make it through? Why are you sitting here thinking that you're still somehow going to be different than everybody else and make it through despite the fact that you're not doing everything you need to do? It's ridiculous. Like, stop trying to get by without doing everything you need to do. So that 1% athlete lifestyle, the main thing I want you to take away from that, the main thing I want you to start working on with that is understanding that your skills training is one piece of the puzzle. You are not going to make it to the top just by being skilled. But if you are able to take that same energy, that same passion, that same enthusiasm into every area of your preparation, your recovery, your nutrition, your strength and conditioning, your mindset work, all of it, now you're going to be able to separate yourself. Because even if you're not spending the same amount of time in the MMA gym or in the boxing gym or in whatever else it is for your sport as this guy, that guy, or the other guy, you're showing up for everything while they're showing up for one thing. Because if their skills are better than yours, but you're faster than them, you're stronger than them, you're more resilient to injury than they are, you're in better shape than they are, you can push a pace longer than they can. Now, it's no contest. You know exactly who the fuck's going to win that fight. You know exactly who the fuck's going to come out on top. It's going to be you every time because you are the one who is prepared in every single area. Now, one more thing that I want you to take away from this, everything that we've talked about in this episode, one more thing I want you to take away from this is this needs to be consistent. If you're taking away from this episode and you're going, man, super motivated, super excited, I'm going to go meal prep today and I'm going to, hit my strength and conditioning this week. I'm not going to miss anymore. And that attitude holds up for 2 weeks and then you fucking fall off again. That doesn't mean shit. You need to be consistent with this. You need to be consistent with this. And if you're not consistent with this, if you let it fall off, if you don't find that balance, if you don't continue to approach every area with that passion, intensity, and enthusiasm, you're going to fall off before you hit that 1%. And the reason you're going to fall off before you hit that 1%, and I can say that with certainty, is because, as I've said already, it's 1%. That means 99% of you out there that want to make your career in sport won't. And I don't want that sentence to discourage you. I don't want that thought to discourage you. What I want it to do is I want it to make you realize that you need to step your game up. I want it to make you realize that there is more work to be done. There is better work to be done. There is more efficient work to be done. Because if you can come to terms with the fact that what you're doing right now might not be enough, and there's more angles you can come at, there's more things you can do, now you can make changes, you can improve, and in turn, you can put yourself in that 1%. So before I wrap up the show, I wanted to talk back to that comment that came in earlier talking about balance. And I do firmly agree that the people who are going to be the most successful are the ones who can find balance. Because if you only focus on your sport 24 hours a day, all of that, I guarantee you're going to hit burnout. You're going to hit that point where you just don't love it anymore. You just don't want to do it anymore. And it's just a pain in the ass more than anything else. But what I really want to enforce with that is that balance when it comes to being great at something, balance when it comes to being a professional athlete, balance when it comes to living out your dream like you're trying to do, looks very different than what a lot of people talk about work-life balance. A lot of people talk about work-life balance, 5 o'clock comes around, they shut everything down and, they're off all weekend and blah, blah, blah. If you're trying to be great at something, that can't be you. If you're trying to be great at something, you need to be obsessed with it. You need to be relentless with it. You need to focus on it as your number one priority at all times. But on the other hand, you need to give yourself breaks. You need to give yourself breaks from it. Because like I said, if you're trying to focus on it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're going to hit that point where it just isn't enjoyable anymore. And I guarantee if your sport is not enjoyable for you, you're not going to make it to the top. So be in a position where you can be obsessed with it. You give it everything you've got, but then have those moments where you can shut it down. Have those moments, have those times through your week where you say, not today. I'm taking my recovery day. I'm shutting the sport out of my mind, and I'll get back to it tomorrow. Because if you can do that and you can properly find that balance, that allows you to recharge your batteries. That allows you to keep the love, keep the enjoyment. And if you keep the love, the enjoyment, the passion, that is what's going to put you forward. That is what's going to create that 1% athlete. So I hope that was valuable. I hope you guys got something from that. If you did, make sure to either drop a comment on this video right now, leave a review for the podcast if you're listening to this back on the replay, or send me a message. Let me know what you were able to take away from the show today, what you enjoyed, and any topics that you'd like to hear about in the future. My one ask for this podcast is that people share the show with teammates, share the show with friends, and make sure that we spread this message as far and wide as we possibly can. But as we wrap up right now, what I want to ask you is, from this episode, from everything I talked about for the last near 20 minutes, were you on the side of that 1% athlete? Are you living that lifestyle right now? Or do you have work to do? And if you do, what is that work? My challenge for you this week is to find it, find where that hole in your game is, and in turn, make sure that you're fixing it in order to reach the next level. So that is it. That is all. I appreciate you taking the time to tune in, and we'll talk to you all again very soon.